why am I making this video? This is essentially a history of PC versus console in fighting games, but I'm gonna stick with Arc System Works games. They're the ones I played the most. They're the ones where I feel pretty confident about what I'm about to say. I can't really speak for Tekken or Street Fighter or anything else but Arc System Works games. That's disclaimer number 1. Disclaimer number 2, what I'm about to say is about the competitive perspective. If you play for fun and you want an opinion, basically play on the platform where your friends play on, where you can just have fun playing the game, and whatever is easiest for you. If you play on PC, you don't have to pay for you don't have to pay, sorry, for PSN Plus or anything. So there you go. Yeah. Just got those out the way. This is a topic that comes up on stream a lot because I practice the game on PS4 always. Even playing online, training mode, I only play on base PS4. Pretty often people ask, why do you do this? Why do you do this? And I usually address their question and they're like, oh, this makes a lot of sense. But every once in a while, something will come up in the comments. Something that's kind of cap will come up in the comments. And the wrong person found me at the wrong time. I'm fucking petty, so here we go. I uploaded me vs Watashi the other day, and we got this comment. Playing Millia on PS4 is like trolling. Same goes for Nago, but playing Millia vs Nago on console, you might as well just flip a coin and call it a day. Okay, I reply, disagree. This game is made for a console, in my opinion. I am tired, and I'm gonna say it again, I'm tired of people OSing matchups by going LOL console. On top of that, in both characters' cases, the main thing that they would use to open up is unseeable on any platform. So first of all, he says I'm being ridiculous. Then, a game is never made, quote, for console, end quote, when the input lag alone is higher than what the ping of an acceptable connection is. While it is true that Millia's main damage may come from her Oki, which is next to unreactable, by the way. He won't even say unreactable. Next to unreactable in any case. Her way to convert stray hits or neutral into Oki situations never were and never ought to be unseeable. And while that may be the case on console, it is not on PC. I played Millia on PSI a lot. I know how abusable she is there, and now I'm on PC is a completely different experience, especially when facing her. Same goes for Nago. Reacting to Nago's Fukio into bite is possible on PC, especially when expected. On console, it's a pure guessing game. So first, I'm just gonna address this. And then we'll get into history, and responsible streamer LK will put chapters in this, so if you don't feel like listening to me, like, snipe this dude, you could just go into the fun part about the history. So, I'm not even going to point number 1, we'll get into that. Point number 2, that just says you fucking suck with Millia, and you play predictable Millias. Real fucking talk. Real talk. I cannot believe someone would have the fucking nerve to say that, That's some real shit. Like, you played Millia, cool. I played Millia in fucking high-level tournaments. I played in the hardest tournaments, offline and online. Immediately after we played, I shouldn't even say this online set, because I've played Otashi offline as well, and he's always like, man, it's really hard to gauge where you're going, because I know how to vary her movement and make it hard for people to see where I'm going. If you're talking about Nago Fukio, it is fast enough to see the step. You basically can't see the bite. If you're saying that you're reacting to bite, you're capping. It's just facts, just straight facts. Anyway, let's go into chapter 1. So, a history of PC versus console in Arc System Works games. So we must go back. That's why I'm using Zelda music, because we have to go back in time. There are eras to this. So we're going to go through general arcades. So we're talking pre-Nessica, so like Blaze Blue, basically. Then we're going to talk about 2010-ish era games. Then we're going to talk about Exerd. And then we're going to talk about Strive. So if we're going to talk about arcade, we need to start with GGXX and just general that era of games. So in general, those games, like your Third Strikes and stuff, they had around like 3 frames of delay. And the main thing about XX is that there's a lot, the game is very high speed. Like, there's a lot of stuff that you basically can't react to, and like one of the things that would help people defend is just the fact that there's not a lot of stuff you can delay cancel. So while it's still hard to defend, you can at least like aim for timings to help you deal with stuff. There's stuff like Millia 6K being like 20 frames is a good example. Total duration of moves, like a lot of moves total duration being like between 25 and 30, where now it's like longer. The main thing that makes things hard to deal with, right? Speed, animation, then delay. The last one is always delay. So Millia has like a 20 frame, it hits crouches on around frame 20 or 21. It's her 6K. the classic one, the classic 6K from Exerd and XX. Now it's like 27 frames, much slower. But one of the main reasons why it was so hard to defend was partly because of the way the move animated. So she didn't really get to the point where you could see her doing the move until pretty late into the move. So it became very hard to visually react. Most people were like, you basically can't. And people use a lot of like options like defense to try to like deal with that type of move. This is pretty common around that time. Where it gets spicy is when we go to like 2010s, when we go to like Blaze Blue, Persona 4 Arena, things like that. So there's a couple of problems, and the main one being, and this is some nightmare shit. I will 100% agree. This is some nightmare shit. For a community that generally likes to use the arcade version of fighting games as the standard, in this era of, we call it like the Nesca era and stuff, there wasn't a consistent arcade cabinet. There was different versions of the same arcade cabinet with different amounts of delay. And to my knowledge, you're talking about like 5 to 6 frames of delay. In my opinion, I think ArcSys knew, because for many of these characters, a lot of things are slower. It's not because of like, let's say high def sprites, because Persona 4 Arena and Blaze Blue have high def sprites, because Exerd, you know, has like this system, this kind of like cell shading anime system, and it's based off XX, and the frame data is also like XX. So it's definitely not about sprites and how things are animated. They just made it slower, in my opinion, because they know about the delay. This is very old. This is from Evo 2014. This is Blaze Blue. So this is BBCP 1.1 in this version of the game, right? So in arcades, the delay, depending on your cabinet, is probably between 4 and 6 frames. But on console, on PS3, this is a 3-frame delay game, and this makes a really big difference because a lot of characters who are considered having good mix-ups, like Lychee, become much weaker in this context, right? She is designed to be a mix-up character, but her main mix-ups are things like 6A, putting down the staff, 4D, things like that. Her 6A is 22 frames. Putting down the staff, it depends on how you do it, but the fast set, the 2D set, to my memory, is like 21 frames. If you're talking about like 4 to 6 frame delay, this shit, you cannot react to this shit. This is a big problem I had in this version, because I played Kokonoe as my actual main. Here, I think I'm playing Lychee just because I'm tight, and I'm just like, man, like, I'm still like the sick Lychee, but I don't like how she is in this version. Kokonoe has an overhead that's 25 frames, and I remember studying footage, and there was a really strong player named Tetsuo playing Kokonoe, and he would routinely hit people with Kokonoe 6B, right? 25 frame overhead. But in my practice, especially offline practice, this can be reliably, like basically 100% of the time, defended on PS3 at the time. And I was really confused. I just didn't understand how he was smoking. I was trying so many things to get it to work. And me in particular, which is funny considering that comment, when I play fighting games online, I try to use things that I know will also work offline. I played delay-based netcode games like Blaze Blue, Persona 4 Arena, Exerd, so I understand that there are things that will work online and things that won't work offline. So the Kokonoe thing was really troubling, and then we learned about the delay and the different types of cabinets, and it all kind of made sense. And when you look at it too, there's so many characters in this game, Blaze Blue, who have this kind of command move that's like low 20ish frames, where like on a console you're golden, but in arcade there's no way. And you could see it also reflected in Japanese tournaments versus American tournaments, and who was doing well and who wasn't. And you're just like, after like a few versions of this, especially once we get to Persona 4 Arena, I'm like, man, like, I think they do this on purpose. The main example would be Chia. She has a 23 frame overhead that's airborne, so it beats grabs. But on console, it's kind of a jump scare on console, but you can defend it. But arcade, you basically can't see it. It's really, really fucking hard to defend on that platform. The 2D staff set, to my knowledge, is 21 frames. And then he dashed in my face and pressed the button. There's a huge gap there. But between the subtlety of the animation and the speed of the animation, it's still pretty tough. In arcades, you basically can't deal with this. And this is like one of the main reasons why Lychee is considered so strong all the time. I mean, she's good enough that on both platforms, she's top tier. But that's like a huge part of it. At this point, we move to Exerd. Exerd comes out after Blaze Blue and Persona, and this is a really weird game for a few reasons. So one, Exerd has the arcade problem. So what do I mean? the cabs are like 5 frame delay, but the frame data is old Guilty Gear frame data. So like things are fucking fast. So there are things like Faust instant overhead, where on console you have to be like basically perfect to make an instant overhead, where on arcade it's just like, it's truly the definition of invisible. Xrd PC with all the toggles off is 1 frame. Console, PS3, PS4 are 4 frames, and then arcade, someone can say the specific later, but I believe it's like 5-ish frames, 5 to 5.5-ish frames. The reason why people started playing Xrd on PC, at least in my region, in North America, is that Xrd is a fast game with delay-based netcode, and it wasn't great, by the way. And I think the main reason ended up being is that it doesn't have the same system as BlazBlue, where BlazBlue, I think they made this with netplay in mind, where you can hold a button and it repeats the input for 5 frames, where Xrd does not have this. It got so bad that people in the state over from me, even though I thought it was like just for practice, right? Who cares about winning and losing? Just for practice, they wouldn't play me. So the solution was PC, and because of these toggles, which you can't change on PS3 or PS4, you can make delay netcode more tolerable. Still not good, just tolerable, right? So that's what most people are doing. They would practice the game on console and then play online on PC. No problem there. They also do this in Dragon Ball FighterZ, yes. Even though Dragon Ball FighterZ on PC has a bunch of problems, it has the same thing where you can toggle things so that you can reduce the delay of the game. But Dragon Ball, while having that, it's not like Xrd. So I would say Dragon Ball is like the first modern Arc System Works fighter, right? So Dragon Ball shares a lot of frame data with the kind of 2010s like BlazBlue Persona. So a good example, Dragon Rush, right? Dragon Rush reaches you around like frame 18. You could tech it till frame 24. There's multiple ways you could tech it. If you tech it with a button, 7 frames. If you tech it with Dragon Rush, you have the entire duration of Dragon Rush. And there's a lot of moves in Dragon Ball. There are like 24-ish frames. You know, like 6Ms, the classic ones, some command grabs. Very curious number. It's a number they keep picking. And Dragon Ball on PS4 is, it might sound familiar if you remember Xrd. It's 4 frames. Another game that has 4 frame delay. By the way, once in a while they go too far. There's some characters who occasionally have like 30 frame things, and everyone's like, this shit is cap, and then they fucking speed it up. Some characters, so famously Broly, he has a command grab that is too fucking fast for you to react to. It's like 17 frames. You can't fucking react to it. Doesn't matter if you're playing on PC or console. Can't fucking react to it, right? Base Goku with his 20 frame command grab that has a very interesting animation where he kind of lunges at you. Kind of animates in a tricky way. Main point being that Dragon Ball shares a lot of frame data with like your Persona, BlazBlue, and has that 4 frame delay also. This brings us to this game, Guilty Gear Strive. This is the first time that the Guilty Gear formula has changed a lot, basically since XX, like frankly. Even though they add things to each patch, this is like the first time they've gone back and went from the ground up and changed the game. And one thing they did is a lot of frame data is different. Basically, things are generally slower and generally longer total duration. That's how I would put it. This game on base PS4, 4 frames. But Strive is a kind of tricky situation because 1, there's no arcade, and then 2, there's a PS4 Pro and PS4 on PS5, which is 2 frames. And then there's PC, which you could toggle. So frankly, and I've been saving this for this, one of the reasons why I say that these games are made for console is in the past, it has taken so long for PC ports of games, fighting games, to come out. JP devs basically don't give a fuck about PC, and the main reason why we're getting PC versions basically at the same time as console version has just been over time. Consumers have been like, yo, what the fuck's wrong with you? I don't want to buy a console. I don't want to pay for PSN Plus or Xbox Live or whatever. I play on PC. Can we please have a PC port fast? PC ports used to be the only thing that was later than the Western ports, because we used to get fighting games really late. Really late. Let's say like more than a year in some cases. If you're talking about a EU Persona 4 Arena 1, I think never. So PC was the definition of an afterthought for a long time. They don't really care. People made them care. One way you can think about PC for Strive in particular is like you can play and practice the game online, and it's pretty comparable, like for real this time, to offline. And then when you do like training mode or whatever, you can play on a console if you're focusing on the competitive perspective. But since everything is like slower, and console, especially base PS4, Strive has that same delay that many Arc Sys fighting games have. That's why I keep saying it leads me to believe that this game is made for console. Take Dust, Fast Dust, 20 frames, right? Slow Dust, the one that gives you a fat ass combo, It's 28 frames. You will block that. Believe in yourself. Where the fast dust is pretty tricky. What ends up happening with PC players, and this is me talking shit for real, is because they only play on PC, they think their defense is too nasty because they're not playing the actual game, and then they go to offline tournaments and they get smoked, and then they blame the game. They're like, oh, well, console's fucking laggy. But they don't take into account that they make the speeds of these moves that way for a fucking reason. The Dragon Ball example are PC players going to offline tournaments and then bitching about Dragon Rush. This is real talk. So my homie here. This match is a coin flip. Is it a coin flip or are you just blaming the game? This is why I say people fucking they blame console instead of accepting responsibility for getting hit. This happened all the time in Dragon Ball where people are like, X person from PC who's a good player. There's a bunch of them that this happened to who only play PC. Rightfully so, because the netcode is trash. Like the netcode is not good. We all agree. Shake hands. We all agree the netcode in Dragon Ball is not great. So we play PC, we play in the cloud, you do what you gotta do. But you have to understand that not only are all the important tournaments on console, right? One, but then the frame data suggests that they want certain things to be tricky and certain things to not be tricky. The 28 frame charged dust, right? They don't really want that to be tricky. Or another one is when people are like, oh, Leo on console, LOL. I'm like, his overhead is 18 frames. The back turn 5H is 18 frames. If you think you could block that all the time, then bro, you need to go to the Olympics or some shit. Fuck fighting games. The legendary nerf, it read really funny, but it is true. It's the chip alpha blade slower. I think they were thinking more about PSN online, but they're like, we made it slower so that it could be defended in different platforms. And like that is like such a clear example of like they're thinking about delay in the game. I will say again that PS4 Pro and PS4 on PS5 is kind of mystery. I would personally really like it if they sped up the game. Like, I would actually like it if, like, let's say they figure out how to get base PS4 to like 2 frames or whatever, right? And then they sped up a bunch of shit in the game. They've done this in the past, by the way, in like BlazBlue. The way they did attack levels, the game just looked slower while you were hitting them. Where in CP, they still had the attack level system, but they just, I don't know if I'm saying this the right way, but they cut hit stops so that the game literally looked faster. That's one of the reasons why CF looks so fucking fast. Old BlazBlue does not look as fast as that, even though it's still like hard to defend shit. It doesn't look that fast. So I'm very open to that change. I liked that change in BBCP, and I'd be open to that change in this game. But you can't blame the beast. And I hear this a decent amount of people who are like, LOL console, when they get hit by some shit that has nothing to do with consoles. Like, what the fuck? The official first reply to this video would be, I get your point, LK, and it's valid if you don't mind that your character benefits from lag the most. Also, I never did lazily blame console for getting hit. I just couldn't bother playing the coin flip version of the game in which certain characters benefit from the simple fact that conditions for their whole set play games are much more frequently and easier met. Millia is balanced around the fact that she's supposed to be reactable before the knockdown. You're in complete denial if you claim that she's supposed to be unseeable and unreactable at all. So let's look at Millia real quick. This is why I say this about Millia. I will give you specific numbers on why I feel like she is like this. So, Millia, how fast do you think that is? When do you think Millia can act out of this? 20, 24, 11, 30, 40, 5 frames after? The answer is she can act 13 frames out of her IAD. How fast do you think Kai acts out of his IAD? How fast do you think he can act out of this? 18, yes, 18. You got it right away, 18. It is different per character. Yes, it is different per character. Millia is 13. So this is basically 21 frames, okay? I will say he's not wrong that it's definitely easier to deal with this on PC because there's just less delay in the game. But if they wanted this to be so easily to deal with, they would make her act out of the air dash slower. There are other characters in the game that act out of air dash slower. She acts out of air dash the fastest. When would this come up though? This comes up all the time. If you guys look at the way I position moves and stuff, you stand at a spot where the opponent doesn't know if you're gonna do this, wait, press, or back off. Because how fast do you think Millia's total duration on her backdash is from beginning to end? How fast do you think this is? 16. All right, everyone knows 16. 16 frames. 16 frames. So one of the challenges of fighting against Millia is you don't know if she's gonna do this, or she's gonna do this, or she's gonna do this. Oh, not Kyle. She's gonna do this, or she's gonna do this. You don't know. Like when she's in a certain range, she has a bunch of shit that's really, really, really fast. And if you vary them in a good way, it's hard for your opponent to select against them. It's been for a very long time in Guilty Gear a core thing about her neutral game. My amigo is not wrong to saying that is easier to deal with because there's less delay, but you literally cannot see. It's 16 frames. You can't see it. You can't fucking see this. It is too fast. By the time you see that she did this, she's already doing something else. It doesn't matter what the fucking platform is. This is what I mean by I get annoyed when people lazily say that, oh, well, it's console, so I couldn't do it. No, fuck you. Don't blame the beast. Don't blame the beast. It's actually also funny too that he talks about Fukyo, where Fukyo you can't react to the difference between back or forward Fukyo on either platform, because back Fukyo is like 16. Like forward Fukyo is like 25, back Fukyo is like 16. But you can see forward Fukyo button on either platform. What's wrong with like this person's take is that I think he's just really short-sighted about it. He's not looking at it from the history of all games. And this is a mistake that a lot of people make in this version. And I think it's mostly just because like there's just more people who started with this game and they're like, one version very fast, one version less fast, so the faster version is better. You have to weigh this against the other games. The only reason why I say what I say about console versus PC is because I am weighing it against their past games and things they've done in past games. Okay? Any question?